Yes, it's high tech.
A fully analog
Rockers with wooden acoustic guitar. That's where it's ended up.
A fully analog presentation to come from Greil Marcus and John Langford. Greil Marcus obviously needs no introduction here because he invented what we all do. His work enmeshes music and cultural criticism and has been an inspiration to me, and I think is probably speaking for just about everyone in the room, for writing about music as a part of our larger political, social culture. John Langford is a Mekon, and today Greil is going to speak about the Mekons, and he's got his AV displayed right there to his right.
I'm Greil's human jukebox.
Yay!
All right. Well, this conference is called Music and Politics, and it maybe immediately made me think, okay, what is politics? Well, everyone is defining it differently or not defining it at all. But I'm defining it as arguments over what constitutes the good life and how to achieve it, or how to protect it, or how to impose it. In America, this often comes to rest as arguments about freedom, what it is, how to protect it, how to achieve it, how to impose it. Here is Paul Ryan from February 21st of this year. Freedom is the ability to buy what you want to fit what you need. That's it. Aristotle defined freedom as the ability to live rationally while avoiding extremes of weakness and of power. Marx defined freedom as to hunt in the morning, to fish in the afternoon, to rear cattle in the evening, and criticize after dinner. The Declaration of Independence defines freedom as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And by happiness, Hannah Arendt argued, is what she called public happiness. And that meant the joy and the discovery of and efficacy of acting in concert in public. In other words, happiness is politics. Or politics is as defined last year in Jared Kobeck's novel, I Hate the Internet, subtitled A Useful Novel Against Men, Money, and the Filth of Instagram, which included a discussion of how the CIA created the idea of the good novel. His definition of politics: an organizing principle used by societies to determine which individuals were granted homes on higher ground and which individuals were forcibly executed. The Mekons, the last line of a show at DV8, a fancy club with a velvet rope and not enough people to line up, June 26, 1986. The bathroom looked like an expensive restaurant, said one person who wrote up the show. Last line of that show: do you want to be part of the crime, or do you want to be part of the punishment? The Mekons began in Leeds on their first record, 32 Weeks, 1978. A record that pretty much agrees with Paul Ryan, or rather from the self-hating snarl of the singer to the whap, 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 get it over with and shut up, whap, whap, whap of the guitars carrying the argument forward, either agrees with Paul Ryan or rejects it. Are we going to do this?
Yeah, the duet.
Takes 32 weeks to get a car, 3 days, 4 hours. Get a job, get a car. It takes 1 week of your life to buy a mattress, 3 days, 4 hours. Get a job, get a car, get a bed. It takes 3 hours of your life to buy whiskey, 45 minutes. Get a job, get a car, get a bed, get drunk. It takes 6 weeks of your life to buy a loaf. Go ashore for it. Get drunk, to buy a loaf. Get drunk, get a bed, get a car, get a job. It's winning the number for the weekly £5,000 premium savings bond prize. The winner lives in Hull. The last line of the Mekon story. from narrator David Spencer, getting progressively drunk and addled, here as if he can't bear what he has to say. The Mekons finally folded in 1982. And the sense of it all being gone, just those 4 or 5 years, these people giving up the ghost, surrendering to history, to the history that they failed to make. Hearing that can be as crushing to the listener as it obviously is to the speaker, and it makes the whole album into a kind of suicide note. The darkening mood of this album, a collection of odds and ends from the Mekons, from their first rehearsals, from their first who's in the band, I don't know, who's here. Life seems to be pitched on this album, the Mekon story, between terrorism and nostalgia. Nothing holds, everything is coming apart. It's all warnings and people lost, disappearing, dead, unrecognizable, shouts that just seem to come out of nowhere. Look out, there's no time, stay on the ground. But Fight the Cuts on this album, 1997, a first spitball at Labor trying to ward off the Tories, is just what Arendt said it was. Fight the Cuts, a little protest song, is happiness. The performance radiates fun. It's fun to go out on the street with your best friends and people you haven't met and shout what you hate and what you love. But as the story turned a corner, as history turned a corner, as ordinary life turned a corner, the Mekons were like any losers who won the gift of history. In a crucial public moment, a moment of punk, a new kind of public speech, a new kind of free speech, they found themselves. And it was, as A.J.P. Taylor said of 1848, it was a turning point in history when history refused to turn. With the albums Fear and Whiskey in 1985 and The Edge of the World the year after that, Fight the Cuts is now a happy memory. This is Thatcherism as a totality. Darkness and doubt just followed me about. This is music of termite rebels burrowing into dark times. Real people struggling with real questions. And it's all in the tone, the sense of comradeship and desperation, isolation and losing your grip. How do we live when all we cherish has been buried in the shit of power? When Madame Medusa's gaze has turned everything we love into stone? And the answers to these questions range from oblivion to good conversation. Songs begin from the premise that the singer is oppressed by everything that is empowered and that the world could care less. Self-pity becomes sardonic self-hate. And you read the news, and paranoid fantasies replace the straightforward accounts of wealth and poverty, war by fire and war by other means. The records are a dramatization of the wish and the will to make history when history has passed you by. There's that terrible moment in the song King Arthur. There's a crying voice and somehow questioning itself, its fiction, its fact, reaching for what it knows it can't grasp. His mind was filled with memories of friends long gone by, scattered all over from Newport to Leeds, talking of unity, crippled by fate, people hiding, people like bees, divided and lonely, too weak and too late. And I can really, I have these words written down, but I would have said them anyway if I hadn't. I can barely stand to say those words. That time comes back like a killer leaping out of history. It's right out of a horror movie, and of course the same story was playing out here under Ronald Reagan. And that's why the closing words of the Mekon story hit so hard even then, but especially after Fear and Whiskey and The Edge of the World, those words echoing 3-4 years later. The songs convinced me that in my own hideout, in my own cowardice, and my own isolation, there were still people out there that I wanted to meet. And I wanted to find out what they thought and why. 5 years later, with The Curse of the Mekons, Sally Tim's song, Wild and Blue, her tone is so light, it's so confident, It's so modest, she can make Roseanne Cash sound strident. And the song titles on this album, The Curse of the Mekons, they're not characteristic for the Mekons, who like to, play out strings of metaphors, who love words and who love wordplay. Here on this album, the titles are just single, cruel words, catching the world they're trying to set themselves against. Song titles: Authority, Secrets, Brutal, Funeral. It's like Wallace Shawn's one-person play, The Fever, from right at the same time. A man explains, sitting on his stage, sitting in a chair, sitting on the side of the stage, half in darkness. He explains why resistance is not only always futile, but it's a lie. And why the shit of power is a mother's embrace, why the comfort of the liberal, even the self-described radical, is tied to torture, why one's precious individuality rests on the backs of the poor. The poor, who he says, must be made to understand that the dreamers, the idealists, the ones who say they love the poor, will all become vicious killers in the end. And the ones who claim they can create something better will always end up creating something worse. The poor must understand these essential lessons, chapters from history, Wallace Shawn's speaker says. And if they don't understand that, they must be taken out and shot. I really want to talk about two more recent albums, two moments, two arguments about the good life, how to achieve it, how to protect it, and how not to forget it. How to recognize the shapes that a good life takes. One is Journey from the End of the Night from 2000. The other is Ooh, Out of Our Heads from 2002. And those records, for me anyway, and I would think if you put them on and played them right now, they don't really carry any dates. Like real art, like any real art, they create their own sense of time. And they can make any place into the here and the now. They capture a future you hope you don't live to see. There are massed voices in the songs. There's shouts coming from all directions. Sally Timms seems even more contemplative. She sings more slowly, telling the story as if she knows how it all came out, but wants to tell it as if she doesn't know. There's a deeper sense of community in these records, in the longer stretches and bends in the melodies, and Susie Honeyman's fiddle pulling those melodies out even farther until you're desperate to believe everything you're hearing, every person, every syllable, every lift in the music, every smile in the music. Only you and your ghost will know. Will know what? That sense of isolation is still in this song. As Tom Greenhalgh opens the song with his head hung down, believing in nothing, it's like they've all gone to ground. Every friend you have, anyone you trusted, anyone you care about, where are they? Are they sick? Are they well? Are they dead? Are they alive? You've gone to ground. But the song begins to rise. It really just begins to lift off the ground. Against a dark pattern offered by one guitar, a passage that's just all fatalism, another guitar answers with a note so bright, each note that follows a thing in itself. Each one seems like a different emotion, something felt by a different person each time in a different moment. That becomes undeniable. A sense fatalism breaks into pieces. Greenhalgh, he gives lessons. A chorus answers with infinitely deeper knowledge than anything he's offering, the chorus is throwing the song at the listener as a challenge, a dare. Only you and your ghost will know if you kept faith or gave up. But that doesn't feel true as you listen. What feels true is that all the people in that chorus are looking you in the face and asking their question, certain that you can live up to the question. Have you ever known any people so forthright, so unafraid? That's the feeling that comes off this song. Is it a fantasy? It just feels like it can't be a fantasy. How can anything this beautiful, anything this full of life, be a lie? And the answer is just like that. All through Journey of the Night, A Journey to the End of the Night, you can sense a belief that there's nothing new under the sun, combined with a faraway fantasy that one morning, one more sunrise, there might be something new under the sun. The wish comes true, Sally Timms sings in The Flood, but not by wishing. Her voice rises, it warbles, and trembles, and grins, and as a mere set of words, this song, as it goes on, describes nothing but a chance encounter between two strangers. I imagine a railroad station, then there's quick sex in a field or a parking garage, but the orchestration of mere words, a European spy movie music theme is set, and then each entering instrument playing in a whisper, it makes this little story into a whole world, a memory around which a life might be measured and found wanting forever. The synthesizer makes you feel like you're in a chilly rain. It's a shoot the piano player backdrop for a small-time crime and self-conscious dread. There's a guitar scratching in the background as if it's knocking on a window. And Sally Timms drifts through this song like a character in somebody else's dream, distant, not in focus. She's a beckoning hand that turns into air as soon as you reach for it. But her voice always lets you imagine a person behind that voice, a real person, someone who will never be able to tell half of she knows because nobody lives forever, and that's how long it would take. So instead of a look of helplessness or desire on her face in this chance encounter, there's a mask of slyness, conspiracy. What if, by listening to her secrets, they became your secrets? Now it's just two of you in that railroad station. You realize to listen to this woman may be to join her. But in what? And John Langford rolls the tune with a soft, repeating set of blips on a melodica, and you're swept up in a romance that's equal parts sex and espionage. All through Journey to the End of the Night is a tone of loss and regret, melancholy, depression, self-loathing. There's a man in neglect, trying to make excuses for his life over a reggae beat that's so tentative, feels like he's embarrassed by it. Telling you he can look like he's in charge when he's wearing his office clothes, and when he gets home and he looks in the mirror, he sees who he really is, and he sees somebody so empty he can barely even see himself. And then he breaks out into a weird chant that brings back Paul Ryan as an instinct buried in modern life. I practice saying, the man says, give me 10,000 pounds. Please, give me 10,000 pounds. Please, give me 10,000 pounds. Please. Or the real thing.
I've been thinking lately how I've been neglecting you. I decided to send you a videotape. So tomorrow I will appear. I'd love to be there, but I just can't this year. I croon an old standard